night, you're not just listening to a story. You're being pulled straight into it. And surprisingly, your brand new role isn't a prince on horseback or some idle noble, but a rookie tricked into stepping onto a pirate ship, a script no one wrote in advance, and definitely one that came without an insurance policy for you to sign. You only meant to stroll around the port, maybe find a cheap inn, or at least a steaming bowl of fish stew. But then a burly man with a thick beard and a grin flashing chipped teeth shoved a wooden cup toward you. "Drink up, mate," he said. The liquor burned hot and rough down your throat, and before you could react, 2 heavy hands clapped hard against your shoulders. Someone whispered in your ear, "Wanna try your luck? Just a short trip. Free food, fresh sea breeze. The perfect, all-inclusive travel ad, except you missed the fine print once you board. There's no return." You nod, partly from the rum, partly from the pounding of your heart under the weight of their grins that felt more like threats. And then it all happens so fast, there isn't time for questions. One arm yanks you forward, another shoves from behind, and your feet land on the trembling planks of the ship. The wood groans, waves slap against the hull, chains rattle together, forming a grim overture to welcome the newest cast member. By the time you realize it, the ship has already slipped away from the dock, pulling farther from shore. Behind you, the lights of the town blur like a screen fading to black. Ahead, only the vast ocean stretches endless, pitch dark, with no exit button in sight. A shiver runs through you, part chill from the wind, part from the truth sinking in you've been tricked. But fate has its own twisted humor. Every story needs a dramatic opening, and you, the reluctant lead, have just been handed yours. From now on, there's no audience seat waiting, no warm bowl of fish stew at the end of the night. There's only this ship, these grim strangers, and a role that will last only as long as you manage to survive. And before you can even exhale a sigh, the bigger question looms. What does life on a pirate ship really look like? As the haze of rum wears off, you begin to see it clearly. Pirate life isn't the glamorous legend you've heard. There are no endless feasts, no wine poured into crystal goblets. Instead, the first meal staged for you is a cracker so hard you wonder if it's meant for hammering nails rather than chewing. The sailors call it hardtack, but you call it what it truly is, a mini brick. When your teeth hit that rock-hard thing, The sound is like biting straight into a broken brick. Someone nearby bursts out laughing, slaps your shoulder, and says, "Congrats, you survived the first bite. It's a Michelin 0-star dish, but hey, at least it keeps you from starving." Then he hands you a bowl of cloudy water, smelling faintly musty, with tiny weevils floating on top like unpaid extras. You swallow hard, trying to convince yourself it's just herbal tea, ocean style, and the rum. Oh, yes, it sounds fancy until you taste it. What you're drinking is rum thinned with seawater. It burns hot going down, only to hit you with a wave of salt so sharp it's like your throat is on fire. Then instantly doused with a bucket of brine. But don't complain too soon. This, apparently, is the only survival cocktail keeping a little warmth in your belly. Sleep offers no comfort either. You're sent below deck, into a space where the smells of sweat, damp wood, and gunpowder blend into a custom fragrance no perfume house would dare bottle. Hammocks sway side by side, crammed tight. The moment you lie down, you're rocked like a baby, except instead of lullabies, you get a choir of squeaking rats and waves pounding the hull. It feels like an all-night amusement ride with no stop button. The daily grind is just as punishing. You're ordered to scrub the deck, haul ropes, and pump water out of the bilge. Under the sun, your skin burns. The salty wind lashes your face like a whip. By night, the cold mist creeps into your bones. Your fingers stiffen, and the older sailors just smirk, as if watching free theater. Welcome to our world. Kid, little by little, you start to see it. Life at sea isn't a string of romantic adventures, but a test of endurance. From biscuits as hard as stone, water tasting like a science experiment, to hammocks that never let you rest, it's all one brutal classroom. And you, the unwilling student, have just begun your first lesson. But then, when you finally lift your head from the deck, you realize something else, something almost entertaining. The crew around you isn't just a bunch of sailors. They're a cast of characters, each one so colorful, it feels like you've been dropped into a reality TV show with no off switch. After a few days of choking down rock-hard biscuits and swinging in hammocks like a bad carnival ride, you start paying closer attention. And suddenly, you see it. This ship is less a vessel, more a bizarre casting call. A mix of oddballs, loud voices, and rough edges, but somehow they have a strange kind of charm. First, there's the infamous red-bearded man, His beard curls into singed spirals, like someone left it too close to the stove, and his eyes always sparkle with mischief. Every night, he spins ghost stories so chilling the whole crew goes quiet, only to burst into raucous laughter when he reveals he made it all up. The way he dupes his audience makes you want to hurl your hardtack at him, while secretly admitting he's a pretty committed amateur screenwriter. Then there's the wiry kid, maybe 12 at most, climbing the rigging faster than a monkey. They say he was once sold into slavery and escaped by stowing away on a ship. Now, he's the heart of the deck, always yelling, singing nonsense verses, and irritating the grown men. He's that noisy side character you can't help but like, because he's just too impossible to hate. And in another corner, you spot the giant, dark-skinned, broad as a doorway, always cradling an old battered instrument. When he plucks its husky notes, the entire ship feels less threatening, almost gentle. They call him the sea bear, fierce in appearance, but strangely tender. He makes you think even action movies need a few soft, musical moments to balance the chaos. And then, of course, there's the one-eyed captain. He doesn't need to shout, just standing on deck, cloak snapping in the wind, one side of his face covered with a black patch. The single eye that remains commands silence. In the flicker of lantern light, he looks like a character who could be hero or villain. You're not sure which, but definitely the kind of fan favorite no one dares underestimate. And beyond him, a whole gallery of faces, a one-armed sailor who spins his iron hook with a clink at every step, an old cook whose ladle doubles as a weapon, a lost Frenchman muttering curses to himself all day. No two are alike, yet they're bound together by one thread drifting on the open sea, with no way back. You sit among them and realize you've stumbled into a salty version of Pirates Got Talent. Every day feels like a new episode, full of surprise performances, songs, brawls, ghost tales, nonsense stories. And you, the reluctant newcomer, are swept into the madness before you can protest. By now, you've gotten used to the rock-hard biscuits, the murky water, and this chaotic cast of characters. You'd think life on a pirate ship is pure disorder. But no. Beneath the laughter, the swearing, the bawdy songs, there's something invisible that keeps everyone standing side by side. Rules. When you first hear the word rules, you almost laugh. Rules. On a ship where men wear rags, wave swords like toys, and drink rum like water. But yes, they exist. And sometimes they're even fairer than anything you've seen in a land-bound office. A sailor explains, on land, the master eats first, and the servants last. On this ship, everything is shared. Even the one with a missing leg or missing arm gets the same share as the strongest man. You blink, startled. Turns out, this is the kind of ideal HR policy no company on shore has ever managed to pull off. Rule number 1, split the gold fairly. Whether you're the captain or the skinny kid scrambling up the mast, when the crew seizes treasure, the shares are already written down. Lose a hand in battle, you still get your cut. Lose a leg, you're not left out. It isn't kindness. It's the system that keeps everyone willing to risk their lives, knowing that if they fall, their share won't vanish with them. Rule number 2, betrayal means hanging. Not a metaphor. A rope is always ready on deck, dangling like a stage prop, waiting for a traitor to take the lead role. The red-bearded sailor once told you he saw a man sell secrets to a merchant ship. By morning, the traitor was swaying from the mast, hair whipping in the wind like a torn flag. No one mourned him, only indifferent stares. You feel a chill as you realize that spoilers on this ship can end your career instantly. Rule number 3, respect the crew's decision. Every big choice, whether it's which way to sail or which ship to attack, is put to a vote. You watch dozens of grizzled men raising their hands and shouting, like a shareholder meeting, except instead of coffee and minutes, there are daggers and curse words. Rule number 4, break the rules, and the whole crew delivers the punishment. No exceptions. Even the one-eyed captain wouldn't dare step outside the code. That's why the ship holds together, adrift on an endless sea, among men who otherwise wouldn't trust each other. You can't help but marvel at the irony in a place branded lawless. There exists a strict, unflinching order. On land, you've seen people cheat and bend the rules without consequence. But here, gold is split evenly. Rights are written down. Betrayal is punished swiftly. Honestly, if some office HR department got wind of this, they'd probably ask for the handbook. You wonder, maybe it's these ironclad rules that turned a ragtag band of outcasts into something like a startup at sea, a community that knew how to share, how to stand together, and how to live or die as one. And just as that thought sparks, you catch whispers behind you, the stories of why they chose to become pirates. Each one with a different reason, yet all of them drifting into the same ship. You used to think pirates were just greedy men chasing gold and jewels. But sitting here, hearing each tale spill from their lips, you realize treasure wasn't always glittering metal. Sometimes it began with a life pushed too far to the edge. The red-bearded rogue, famous for spinning ghost stories, admits he once sailed as a legal sailor. But when the war ended and the merchant ships laid off crews, he was left with nothing. On land, I was just another unemployed man. Out here, at least I'm called a crewmate. And you realize the sea had become the last job board for those who had nowhere else to turn. And that boy who scrambles up the mast, he was born in a damp slum, sold like an object. When he escaped, he found this ship. To you, he's just a loud kid hollering songs. But to him, the wind is freedom, and the mast is the highest place his life has ever reached. And the sea bear, with his old guitar, he tells you how he was once forced into the army, watched his comrades fall one by one, until he finally deserted. On land, he was hunted. At sea, he could play, and no one asked about the past. In the broken chords from his strings, you hear more than music, fear, and the desperate hope of starting over. Even the one-eyed captain, so fearsome and commanding at first glance, was once just an officer betrayed by his own crown. One night, they stripped him of rank, stripped him of honor, and left him with only a single eye to face the world. From then on, his laugh turned cold. If the law is a joke, then I'll write the rules my way. And this ship became his new kingdom, ruled by laws fairer than the throne that abandoned him. You listen, each life story like a shard of broken glass. They didn't come from the same place, didn't share the same fate. Yet every one of them found a reason to climb aboard. Some for hunger, some for war, some to escape, and a few simply because the land felt too dull to bear. And in that moment, you finally understand piracy isn't just a profession. It's like a startup at sea. No suits pitching slides, no revenue forecasts projected on a wall, but daggers, rum, and a raw hunger for freedom. Instead of pitching to investors, they pitched with blood and sheer recklessness. You sigh. To become a pirate, no one had to be born for it. All it took was a moment of being cornered, and the ocean opened up as the only way out. You're just drifting off after a long day scrubbing decks, your hammock creaking and swaying like it's teasing you away from sleep. Your breath slows, the sound of waves outside turning into a steady lullaby. And then, suddenly, a blast rips through the night. Boom! A cannon roars, and the entire ship shudders. You jolt upright, slam your head against a wooden beam, and feel the daze of someone who just woke up inside an IMAX theater with the volume turned all the way up. Gunpowder smoke floods the cabin, stinging your eyes, burning your throat raw. Shouts echo all around. Boarding. They're coming for us. Rough hands yank you out of the hammock like you're just another forgotten prop backstage. Your bare feet slap against the cold, slick planks, soaked with seawater and spilled rum, and you stumble forward as if running through a rowdy tavern after midnight. They shove you onto the deck. The night sky is pitch black, lit only by bursts of flares and torchlight flashing across tents, frantic faces. Steel clangs against steel. Boots thunder on the boards, and waves slam into the hull so hard it feels like the whole crew just signed up for a carnival ride from hell. The one-eyed captain bellows commands, his voice booming like thunder. Sailors scramble to their stations, some loading guns, some hauling lines, others shouting curses loud enough to drown the cannons. You're trembling, a rusted cutlass shoved into your hand, the blade icy against your palm. And in that instant, you realize you're no longer the audience, safe in the back row of some action flick. You are the lead role now. No stunt double waiting to take your place. Another blast splits the sky. A flash of fire revealing the shadow of an enemy ship drawing close. A strange flag whips in the wind, and their cannons roar like hungry beasts. Each thunderous boom feels like a fist slamming straight into your chest, your heart pounding so hard it threatens to leap free. Through the chaos, you catch sight of the wiry boy scaling the mast, hollering signals at the top of his lungs. Redbeard is cackling madly, ramming more powder into a barrel. Now this is a party, he howls, like he's narrating some late-night variety show. And the sea bear, with the guitar, he's tossed it aside, gripping an axe instead, his eyes blazing wild like a cornered animal. No slow-motion glory shots, no sweeping camera angles. This is the rough cut, the straight jump into the climax. Your hands are trembling, breath sharp and fast, gun smoke smothering everything around you. In your head, a question flashes. Is this the start of victory, or just the opening act of tragedy? And then, with a sword shoved into your grip, there's no way back. The reality of being a pirate seeps into your veins, heavy and undeniable. The rusted blade weighs more than you imagined. At first touch, it felt like some cheap stage prop. But with powder smoke flooding the deck, the cold tang of iron mixing with sweat and salt and blood, it suddenly becomes the razor-thin line between life and death. Your fingers quiver, slick with sweat against the worn hilt. Around you, chaos reigns, guttural shouts, the clash of blades ringing out, the thud of bodies colliding hard. Faces twist in the firelight, eyes wide, teeth grinding. An enemy charges straight at you, his breath hot with the stench of dried fish and gunpowder. Your heart slams, chest rattling like a war drum. And then, by pure instinct, you swing. That first clash jolts through your entire body, the grind of metal on metal, sparks spitting out like hitting play on a film you weren't ready for. You realize now you're no longer the safe onlooker, sighing at dangerous but staged scenes on a screen. This is real life, and there's no stunt double-stepping in. The plot twist unfolds in your chest. You've crossed from spectator to reluctant protagonist, and there's no escape from the role. That feeling is strange terror and exhilaration tangled together. Every dodge makes your blood surge. Every missed swing drops your heart into your gut. And oddly enough, in the middle of all that chaos, you still catch the booming laugh of the red-bearded rogue, the shrill whoops of the mast-climbing kid, the thunderous roar of the sea bear. It all comes together like a wild, living orchestra, and you're forced to play along with your own ragged breath as the rhythm. In that moment, you understand being a pirate isn't just slashing and killing. It's being thrown into a card game no one explained the rules for, where you learn and survive at the same time. Your hands shake, your heartbeat stumbles, but your eyes are starting to adjust to the fire and smoke. You're not just holding a sword anymore, you're truly fighting. And in that, you feel yourself alive. You draw in a deep breath, the smoke burning your lungs, but lighting another kind of fire inside awareness. You've crossed the line. You're no longer just the one tricked onto the ship. Here, in the frenzy, you've slipped fully into the role of a pirate. And when the cannons thunder again, rattling the deck beneath your feet, you lift your head. The air is thick. Torches flicker. The clash of steel and the screams blur together. On the deck, every sense of yours is stretched to its limit. The air reeks of gunpowder, of rotting fish from split barrels, of damp canvas stomped underfoot. The stench is so sharp, it feels like every breath drags a whole rotten harbor down your throat. Blades slam together with a dry, grating clang, like iron edges scraping stone. Sparks leap, brief but blinding. Shouts miss with cries of pain, woven into the pounding surf slapping against the hull. It all becomes a mad, unsettling symphony, the kind of soundtrack you'd never want to play twice. In the flicker of torches, figures rush back and forth like broken shadows, distorted and staggering. You catch sight of the mast-climbing kid dangling high, shouting directions, the red-bearded rogue clutching a cannon, laughing wildly like an audience at a comedy show, and the sea bear swinging his axe as if he were just splitting firewood on a cold winter's day. For a fleeting moment, you even meet the icy stare of the one-eyed captain. Just one look, sharp enough to knock your heartbeat off rhythm, as if he were silently judging whether you deserve to exist on this deck at all. You stumble among fallen bodies, feet sliding across puddles of salt water mixed with blood. For a second, you think you'll fall swallowed whole by the chaos itself, but a rough hand yanks you upright, a sailor bellowing through the din. If you're breathing, you're fighting. It sounds cliché, but in the firestorm, it lands like a battle cry from some heavy war movie. You're terrified, overwhelmed. Your pulse races, your sword hand trembles, yet your eyes begin to adjust to the frenzy. This madness isn't staged. It's real. And that truth makes everything around you feel terrifyingly alive. Amid the shouting, one question echoes in your head, from nowhere and everywhere at once. Are you truly ready to take this role? Then, after the clash of steel and the haze of smoke, the ship drifts into silence. You lift your gaze. The clouds part, revealing a deep blue sky tinged with violet. Only the steady beat of waves remains, and the creak of timbers groaning like the sigh of an old man worn thin. The uproar fades, leaving behind such an empty space that you can hear nothing but your own heart pounding. The sea stretches endlessly. By day, the slanting sun spills down, and the water shimmers as if plated with silver. Each crest of a white-tipped wave rises and rolls back, one after another, an endless performance with no finale. By night, the sea lies flat but dense, so black you feel that if you slipped in, it would swallow you whole without leaving a single ripple. No harbor, no trail of smoke, only water and sky. In that moment, you understand what overwhelming loneliness really is, being so small that even your own cough seems to dissolve into the vastness. The crew keeps working, but at a slower rhythm. Someone patches a torn sail. Someone else scrubs the deck. A few sit silent with faraway eyes. The whole ship feels like it has drifted into a slow burn scene. No drama, no frantic action, just long sighs and steady waves. You feel like an audience member who's wandered into an art film, the kind you'd walk out of if you weren't patient. But staying there, you're hypnotized, unable to look away. Loneliness sharpens your senses. You begin to hear the clatter of the rudder, the sound of waves licking the hull like a whisper you can't quite make out. Salt seeps into every thread of fabric, every strand of hair, every cracked fingertip. Each breath feels like taking another sip of the ocean itself. Sometimes a few gulls wheel past and vanish, leaving an emptiness that makes you feel even more exposed. Strangely, in this stretched out monotony, the sea feels both like a companion and a silent enemy. It doesn't do anything. It just surrounds you, so vast, it makes you want to scream and disappear at the same time. You lean against the side of the ship, staring out at the horizon, glowing red as the sun sinks. In that fading light, you suddenly feel like you're no longer someone tricked into boarding this ship, but a tiny piece of the ocean itself. And right then, you hear someone softly whistling a faint sound, but carrying a pulse of life. A reminder that this silence is only the opening act for storms yet to come. The calm of the sea doesn't last. One morning, as the sun rises like a deep red coin hanging over the horizon, the urgent clang of the ship's bell echoes across the deck. Merchant ship ahead. The lazy air tilts instantly. The whole crew erupts, like an audience that's just heard there's a surprise free movie screening. You rush to the rail. In the distance, a small vessel weighed down with cargo rocks gently, its white sail fat with wind, wobbling like a plump duck drifting along. The one-eyed captain points sharply, his voice cutting low. Prepare at once. Ropes, swords, and iron hooks appear. The pirate ship transforms into an old machine, creaky but terrifyingly well-oiled. As the gap closes, the shouts explode. Hooks fly, clanging onto the rail of the merchant ship. You're swept along with the crowd, your steps unsteady, your heart hammering. When you leap across, strange scents hit you would, spices spilling from open crates mixed with the cries of panicked sailors. You swing your sword, not out of bravery, but out of fear of being left behind. The clash is short, but deafening. Metal slams against metal. Barrels crash to the deck. Voices scream. And then, as suddenly as it began, it's over. The merchant ship surrenders, its cargo hauled across. The haul, a few sacks of moldy rice, some rough cloth, a little cheap wine. Disappointment. The crew stares at each other, then bursts out laughing. A red-bearded sailor cracks. That was pure, low-budget action. Plenty of noise, barely any prize. But inside you, adrenaline is still pounding through your veins. In that split second of leaping onto the other ship, you felt just how thin the line between life and death really is. The feeling was terrifying, yet strangely magnetic. Even with such a meager haul, everyone is buzzing with joy. For them, the value isn't only in the crates, it's in the proof that they are still the ones who bring fear to the sea. As the sun climbs higher, the crew collapses onto the deck, passing around rough wine and chewing on bland strips of dried fish. Laughter and curses tumble together, sounding like some bizarre outdoor feast. You sit in the middle of it all, your heart still refusing to slow, and realize something. Sometimes a raid isn't about getting rich. It's about keeping the fire alive, keeping the crew believing that they still exist. And while the taste of wine and the echoes of laughter linger, your eyes drift back toward the horizon. Out there, no merchant ship waits, just the faint, hazy outline of land. A quiet ache begins to rise in you. After the leaps across decks, the shouts, the smoke of gunpowder, you thought you'd grown used to life at sea. But when twilight falls, when silence suddenly presses in, your chest feels hollow. On the deck, the wind still cuts sharp. The waves still beat steady. But your eyes keep reaching for that dim horizon where there's no sign of shore. And in that moment, the longing for land comes rushing back. You remember the smell of fresh bread pulled from a stone oven, the crust shattering crisp in your mouth. You remember thick soup, steaming, filled with herbs and simmered meat, spreading warmth through a small kitchen. You even miss the sharp, grassy scent of dry hay in a stable, a smell that now feels like luxury. Everyday sounds you once thought ordinary, the cries of vendors in the market, the laughter of children chasing each other through the streets, have become the haunting soundtrack looping in your mind. But the sea doesn't let you drift in memories for long. The crew seems to sense that emptiness, too. One of them grabs a guitar and strums a few rough notes, the raspy sound carrying out into the dark night. Then someone starts singing, hoarse and raw, soon joined by a second, then a third, and before long, the whole deck is roaring with a pirate song. The lyrics hardly rhyme, mostly curses, boasting, and drunken laughter, but strangely, they blur the gap between the endless sea and the land you miss. Without realizing it, you're swept into the rhythm. Your voice is shaky, uncertain, but in the middle of that rowdy chorus, it grows bolder. The singing drowns out the waves, even drowns out the loneliness stalking at the edges. In that moment, you understand it's this odd kind of bond that keeps the crew from unraveling in the middle of the vast ocean. Sitting among them, you realize you're standing at a strange crossroads, half your soul aching for a home, the other half drunk on the salty singing, on the feeling that you belong here. The land feels distant, like a dream, while the sea, harsh as it is, opens its arms as the only reality. And just as the last notes fade, a sudden gust tears across the deck, heavy with damp air and a sharp, briny scent. The sea begins to stir violently, while dark clouds surge and mass together overhead. The sky darkens as though someone has snuffed out a giant lamp above. Storm clouds churn and knot into heavy blocks. The wind howls, whistling through the ropes like ghostly screams. The sea rises, wave after black wave, towering like walls of water, ready to swallow everything whole. You cling to the rail, your palms burning as salt-soaked ropes bite into your skin. The ship shudders and bucks like a dying beast. Wood groans, the mast creaks, sailors scream. The songs are gone. The drunken laughter, too, only shouts and cries, tangled with the storm, remain. A violent jolt, then the main mast snaps and crashes down onto the deck. Sparks flare for a heartbeat as a lantern shatters, then vanish into suffocating dark. You and your shipmates hurl yourselves at the rigging, tying down the shredded sails. Wind lashes through. Rain slaps your face sharp as blades. Every breath tastes bitter with salt, part ocean, part fear. Somewhere, the sea bear roars. Haul the lines. Hold her steady, his voice booming over the storm like a battle drum. The red-bearded sailor laughs madly, swearing as if the tempest were nothing more than a free action scene. The cabin boy clings to the mast, trembling but unyielding, eyes wide and locked on his post, and the one-eyed captain stands unshaken on the deck, hands gripping the wheel, shouting commands like a man daring the gods themselves. You're hurled left, then slammed right, every wave twisting your body as if it might break you apart. For a moment, you think it's over, that the ship will split open and drag you all into the abyss. But your body keeps moving, keeps pulling ropes, tying knots, screaming with the crew. The chaos stops being fear. It becomes survival instinct, do or die. Time stretches unbearably. You don't know how long it's only sweat mixing with rain, blood streaking from rope-burned hands, everything swallowed by the storm. And then, at last, when your strength is nearly gone, you realize the waves are slowing. The clouds begin to break. The wind eases. On the horizon, a faint line of light appears like the first crack splitting the dark curtain. The ship is still afloat. You, still breathing. The crew onto the deck, and spent. No one speaks, only the pounding of hearts, blending with the long sighs of relief. Then suddenly, laughter breaks out. The red-bearded sailor shatters the silence, lifting what's left of a rum bottle. Drink up. We're alive. The storm has passed like a drunk collapsing after a wild night, leaving behind a deck littered with battered bodies, clothes torn, hair plastered with salt and rain. The ship lists, wood splintered, ropes tangled like a movie set abandoned after a chaotic scene. And yet, somehow, no one has fallen. Everyone sits heavy and soaked, gasping for air, and then, almost by reflex, crooked smiles, hoarse and broken, start to spread across every face. The red-bearded man laughs first, a ragged, wheezing sound that cuts through the cold, damp air. He raises the empty rum bottle, dripping with rain, shouting, "We're not dead, so that means we won." The whole deck bursts into laughter, coughs, clinking bottles, sputtering voices, all tumble together. The bottle makes its way around those with strength, gulp it down. Those without just tilt back and catch the last drops like some magic potion. The rum is sharp, salty, almost bitter, but in that moment, it tastes better than anything you've ever known. You take a sip, heat rushing down your throat, your whole body shivering alive. No more sting, no more salt, just the taste of survival. Beside you, the cabin boy who had climbed the mast croaks out a pirate tune between coughs. It's off-key, almost painful, but the whole crew claps along as if they were at a grand theater performance. A one-armed sailor bangs his iron hook against the deck in time with the song, turning the boards into an improvised drum stage. The sea bear cradles a waterlogged guitar, plucking shaky notes that somehow carry the chorus of chaos. And you, the one who only trembled through the storm, suddenly find yourself singing too, hoarse and offbeat. But no one cares. On this ship, a feast doesn't need fine wine or roasted meat. They gnaw on hard biscuits, chew strips of dried fish, swig watered-down rum, and laugh as if they were at a wedding banquet. It's the strangest kind of party you've ever known. No DJ, no fireworks, just the wild relief of having been spared by death. Sitting among them, you tilt your face up to the sky. The clouds have cleared, revealing a scattering of stars. You breathe out and realize that in the sound of singing, the bursts of laughter, and the sharp, salt air, your heart feels lighter too. You begin to understand sometimes victory isn't treasure or glory. Sometimes it's just being alive to share a weak sip of rum together. But even before the taste of survival has faded, rumors spread like poisoned wind. A sailor pulls out a crumpled sheet. The ink blurred, but legible enough the crown has placed a heavy bounty on any pirate, dead or alive. The number alone is enough to tempt some men to sell out their own brothers without blinking. The air on deck sinks heavy. The loud songs turn into low mutters. Even the red-bearded man, once laughing like a mad dog, now chews his hard biscuit in silence. No jokes on his lips. The cabin boy stops singing too, his eyes darting nervously, as if even the gulls circling above might be spies of the crown. You look around and see the shift clearly smiles still linger on their lips, but in their eyes a shadow of worry has taken root. Hands curl tighter around the hilts of swords, as if enemies might not only come from the horizon, but could be sitting right beside them. The one-eyed captain calls the crew together, his voice raspy but firm. We've survived storms. We've survived the blades of others. Don't let the fear of the noose strangle your spirit before the rope even touches your neck. The words drop like an anchor, steadying the ship for a moment. And yet, you still feel a chill crawl down your spine. Images flash in your mind, bodies dangling in the square, ropes cutting tight, the roar of a crowd drunk on blood, not some far-off nightmare, but a fate that could be waiting for you and everyone aboard this ship. That night, you lie in your hammock, listening to the wind screech through the wood, the ropes groaning against the strain. Instead of songs, only heavy breaths fill the air, fear thick and pressing. For the first time since being tricked onto this ship, you realize death doesn't just come from the sea or from enemy steel. It hangs in that invisible rope above your head, the law of men. Dawn breaks not only with the pale light of the sun, but with another light, the gleam of ambition sparking in every eye. A weathered scrap of goat skin, salt-stained and ragged, is pulled from a chest by a trembling hand, as if it were the key to another world. On it, blurred lines trace the vague shape of an island, marked with a faded red cross. No one needs to speak. Everyone knows treasure. The deck erupts in chaos at once. Eyes that moments ago were clouded with fear of the bounty now blaze with fire. Some roar with joy. Some clasp their hands in hurried prayers. Others cackle like they've just heard the best joke of their lives. And you, caught in the crush of bodies, feel like you're watching the opening scene of a classic adventure film. The MacGuffin has appeared, and the whole crew is instantly swallowed into a whirlpool of expectation. The red-bearded man jabs a finger at the faded red X. Here chests of gold, silver shining like stars. We'll be rich enough to buy a whole fleet, he bellows, his voice breaking against the roar of the waves. The cabin boy leaps in the air, squealing as if he's been handed candy. The sea bear sits still, plucking at his damp strings, squinting as though calculating how many coins freedom might cost. You hesitate for a moment. The echo of that invisible noose still lingers in your chest, the whisper of death still near. But as you look around, everyone else has already been swept up in treasure fever. The one-eyed captain slams his scarred hand down on the map. This is our chance. Not just to be rich. This is proof our freedom cannot be bought, and it cannot be priced. His voice, hoarse and heavy, rolls over the deck like an oath. The ship veers off course. Sails stretch tight. Ropes scream. Timbers groan. The sea opens ahead, and the vessel shoots forward like an arrow toward destiny. You stand at the rail, wind striking your face, your thoughts tangled like ropes after a storm. Will this journey carry you to true treasure, or only to a glittering illusion rippling on the waves beneath your feet? The deck thrums gently, like the heartbeat of some enormous beast. Above, the sails swell and pulse in the wind, like the lungs of the crew itself. Every breath, every step, every gaze is pulled into one single belief: the treasure waits at the edge of the horizon. But deep down, you know no treasure hunt ever shines only with gold. It always drags along blood, smoke, and betrayal. The test comes sooner than the treasure. On a sweltering noon, the sea lies flat and dark like a sheet of glass, when suddenly, from the horizon, white sails rise and swell in the wind. At first, they're only distant specks, but with each swell of the waves, their shapes sharpen warships of the crown. Crimson flags snap in the air, already stained with the color of blood from afar. The alarm bell shrieks. The one-eyed captain roars, "To your stations." Instantly, the deck transforms into a living machine. Some ram powder into barrels. Others haul ropes. Still more heave cannonballs the size of rice sacks. You're thrown into the frenzy too, handed the task of running powder. Black smoke curls from primed cannon mouths, the stench of sulfur choking your throat. The first cannon fire thunders, shaking the whole ship. Flames flare, smoke rolls thick, swallowing the air. Iron balls scream through the wind, slamming into the sea and blasting water sky high like stone towers. The ship lurches, timbers cracking, planks shattering into shards that rain down like knives. You're knocked flat, your back slamming the deck, pain bursting through you. Yet before you can breathe, the cry goes up. Fire back. The pirates' cannons roar, shots ripping through the air, slamming into the warship's hull, flames exploding on impact. The air fills with shouts that mix fear with exhilaration. The battle is chaos incarnate, like a Michael Bay blockbuster rebuilt with rotten wood smoke choking, fire spreading, voices screaming, steel clashing. You keep hauling powder, trembling, your chest hammering like a war drum. As the two ships close in, the distance shrinks until you can see the faces of the men across the gap, eyes blazing, sweat dripping, swords raised. Then, the cry of boarding tears, the air apart. Iron hooks fly again, biting into the warship's rail. The two vessels slam together, grinding wood against wood with a bone-deep shudder. You see the red-bearded man leap across, laughing as he slashes, his voice louder than the surf. The cabin boy swings himself onto a rope, a wild little monkey in the storm of battle. There's no time left to hesitate. A cold sword is shoved into your hand, and you hurl yourself forward. Steel crashes on steel, sparks flying, screams hammering your ears until every other sound fades away. In each gasping breath, you understand this isn't just a fight. It's survival itself. Every swing of the blade might cost blood. Sea, sky, smoke, fire, they fuse into one brutal tableau. You're no longer watching from the outside. You're inside the play, and there is no space for an audience here. As the cannon fire with the warship ebbs for a moment, you barely catch your breath before the mood on deck shifts again. Not smoke, not waves, but the weight of suspicion. Eyes cut sideways, sharp as daggers hidden up sleeves. The rumor spreads faster than the wind someone has sold word of the ship's course to the crown. The bounty is too fat, and someone among the crew has decided to gamble on betrayal. No proof is needed, just a whisper. And suddenly, the air is heavier than gunpowder smoke. You notice the red-bearded man is suddenly too quiet, his mad laughter gone. The cabin boy crouches low, fidgeting with rope, eyes darting like he's ready to bolt. The sea bear narrows his gaze, his guitar silenced, and the one-eyed captain stands in the center of the deck, one hand on the hilt of his sword, his voice low and heavy as an undertow. On this ship, betrayal has no place to hide. The whole deck falls silent. Only the waves strike and the ropes hiss in the wind. You shiver. Every joke, every drunken song suddenly feels foreign. Now, anyone could be the one who sold you out. Then, without warning, a shout splits the air. A burly sailor is dragged forward, his hands bound tight, his mouth screaming denial. "It wasn't me, I swear," he howls, eyes wide and wild like a cornered animal. But in the crew's gaze, forgiveness has long vanished. The rope waits, clutched in eager hands. You turn your face away, but the screams tear into your ears anyway. The snap of the rope, the frantic thrashing of a body, then silence. From the mast, a figure hangs, hair whipping in the wind. The sight is freezing cold, etched into your mind like a scar that will never fade. The captain roars. This is the price of betrayal. Anyone who dares will share his fate. The crew shouts back as one, their voices raw with fury, covering the dread that twists inside each chest. You inhale, heavy in your lungs. Out here on the sea, enemies aren't only offshore. Among your own, greed is the sharpest blade. In that moment, you understand the true battle isn't between pirates and the crown, but between fragile trust and betrayal always lurking. And once trust splinters, any strike could come from behind. The evening sky burns red, the sea like a sheet of cloth soaked in blood. Far off, the white sail of a second royal ship swells with wind, gliding closer in an eerie silence. No bell is needed. The crew already knows this isn't just another clash. This is destiny closing in. You grip your sword hilt, your palms slick with cold sweat. On deck, everyone readies themselves as if stepping into the final act of a play. The one-eyed captain looms at the wheel, his voice booming like a declaration of war. We fight to the end. Anyone who wants to turn away can jump into the sea right now. No one jumps. Even the cabin boy on the mast screams, face flushed. To the end, then to the end. The whole crew roars back, their rough shouts rolling like thunder, drowning out the waves. Then the cannons fire. The sky bursts bright, black smoke billows. The ship trembles violently. Cannonballs from the royal ship slam into the deck, wood splintering, shards embedding in the mast like arrows. You're thrown to the boards, ears ringing, heart ready to leap from your chest. But when you look up, the crew is still charging forward, like cornered beasts with nothing left to lose. When the two ships grind together, there's no time to think. Hooks swing, swords flash, roars blend with the sea's thunder. You're swept into the whirlwind, slash, dodge, parry. Metal clangs harsh. The tang of blood fills the air. Gunpowder stings your eyes. Every breath is another fight to stay alive. Beside you, the red-bearded man slashes wildly, screaming and laughing like this is the greatest action scene of his life. The sea bear hurls his heavy axe, every swing crashing down like a sledgehammer. The cabin boy swings from rigging to rigging, flicking his little blade at the enemy, quick as a ghost in the smoke. You throw yourself into the fight, too, no longer the unwilling actor, but truly battling. Every swing of your sword drains your arms. Yet in the chaos, survival instinct takes over. You slash to live. You shout to drown out the fear clawing up your throat. The one-eyed captain roars, charging straight into the enemy ranks. He cuts, blood sprays. Then he turns his one remaining eye, locking on you. In that gaze, the message is clear: live or sink. The battle rages like a storm. Wood shatters, fire spreads, bodies fall. You don't know how long passes, only that your hands tremble. Your vision blurs with smoke and blood. And then, amid it all, you realize this ship, this fight, this is the final threshold. After today, there will be no ordinary tomorrow. Gun smoke begins to thin. Waves return to their steady rhythm. But on the deck, blood and broken planks lie scattered like the ruins of a play too brutal to watch. You gasp for air, your chest aching with each heartbeat. The faces around you, smeared with sweat and ash, meet each other in silence. No more shouting, no more mad laughter, only heavy, wordless eyes. Then the one-eyed captain, still streaked with blood, he hasn't bothered to wipe away, lays his calloused hand on the torn map. His voice is no longer a roar, but a low murmur. This isn't gold or silver. The real treasure is what we've just held on to. You blink. Following his gaze around the deck, the sailors still standing. The cabin boy gasping for breath, but with eyes burning bright. The sea bear slumped against his broken guitar, still managing a faint smile. Even the red-bearded man, blood running down his face, forces out a raspy laugh as he lifts a bottle of rum like a toast. The treasure isn't the chests of gold haunting their dreams, nor diamonds or jewels. It's the simple fact that each of them still exists after death swept so close. It's freedom, something no throne can ever buy. It's memory, the songs in the night, the drunken feasts after storms, the laughter that broke out even in hunger. And it's the strange bond between those cast off by the land, but who found each other at sea. You glance back at yourself. From the one tricked into boarding this ship, you've endured hunger, storms, blades, and even betrayal. And now, you stand among them, not a spectator on the outside anymore. You are part of the treasure. The ship cuts through the waves, surging forward, though no one speaks of the destination anymore. In the pale light of dusk, you understand sometimes treasure isn't at the journey's end. It's in the journey itself, in every breath that remains, in knowing you didn't give up. But before the joy can settle, the shadow of loss creeps in. Because to claim this invisible treasure, many lives have already been left behind. And the question waits for you up ahead. Gnawing is freedom truly worth the cost of blood? After the fury of battle, when the bleeding stops and the smoke drifts away, the deck reveals its empty spaces. Ropes sway in the wind. Charred planks float aimlessly nearby. But the emptiest spaces of all are the places where comrades once sat. You glance around the one-armed sailor who once slammed his iron hook in laughter at the storm's survival feast, now lies slumped by the rail, his eyes wide open, but with no light left in them. A young man who only yesterday sang loud and careless, now lies silent, wrapped tight in a canvas shroud. The waves beat steadily, sounding like funeral bells, each strike a reminder that this freedom has been purchased with blood, with names that will never set foot on land again. The crown captured some, the image of them dragged away, wrists bound, swallowed in smoke and chaos, still haunts your mind. You don't know if they'll face torture or the gallows in the square, but you know this, their screams will echo to no one but stone walls. For them, freedom ends with the tightening of a rope. The one-eyed captain stands silent on deck, his shoulders sagging as though he carries the weight of the sky. He doesn't speak. He only stares toward the horizon. And that look makes you shiver, not the look of a victor, but of a man who knows all too well the price that has just been paid. You touch the nicked, dulled sword in your hand and remember every swing, every choking breath of the fight. You're still alive, but the taste of it is bitter, because right beside you is the emptiness left by those who didn't make it. In your chest, a question digs deeper. Is freedom really worth everything you've given up? Maybe this doubt is the harshest gallows of all. No rope, no public square, just a memory heavy enough to tighten around your mind for life. After so many drifting months, a deck soaked in blood, tears, and frayed pirate songs, the horizon finally shows a different shade. No longer endless blue-black, but a faint brown smear. Then, slowly, unmistakably land. The whole crew rushes to the rail. Their eyes flash with excitement and suspicion, like moviegoers stepping out of a pitch-dark theater after a long film, not quite believing they're back in the real world. You stand among them, watching the solid ground grow closer, your legs trembling, not from the waves, but from your own unsteady heart. The ship slips into port. Oars splash, gulls cry, and the smell of damp earth rises, so different from the sharp salt of the sea. Your feet touch the dock, the dry wood hard and certain compared to the ship's rotten planks. You exhale, thinking you're lighter, but in the very next heartbeat, a strange emptiness opens in your chest. After so long with crashing waves, creaking timbers, and chaotic shouts, this calm feels alien, like a set built wrong in a movie. You watch the crew scatter. The red-bearded man gives you a crooked smile, pats your shoulder, then vanishes into an alley. The sea bear carries his broken guitar slowly toward the city streets. The cabin boy slips away into the noisy market. One by one, they fade, like characters walking off stage after their roles are done, leaving you standing alone on the dock, your heart growing heavier. They say returning to land is the end, but to you, it feels like a plot twist. You've come back to where everything should be familiar, and yet nothing feels that way. The ground is steady, but your heart is not. It's like the theater lights just came on. The audience filed out, and you're still trapped inside the story, unable to find the stop button. You take a deep breath, the smell of fresh bread drifting from a small shop. Once, you longed for that scent. Now, tasting it in the air, your throat tightens, because hidden in its sweetness, you remember biscuits hard as stone, the raspy songs carried over waves, even the bitter salt of raids gone wrong. Land is real, but the sea has carved a mark in you that can't be washed away, and as evening shadows stretch long, you realize this journey isn't over. It's only changed its stage from the deck to the shore. But those memories, those faces, will follow you always. Land lies solid beneath your feet, yet in your mind, the waves still roll. Each step along the cobbled streets makes you stagger, as if the deck were still tilting under you. Voices rise, merchants shout, hooves clatter past. The sounds are familiar, but they make you feel like a stranger who just slipped out of a movie, not yet adjusted to the brightness of real life. One night, you pass a tavern. Music drifts out, not the broken strings of the sea bear, but polished, cheerful notes. Still, your heart twinges, because the melody recalls the rough, ragged chords on deck, when everyone sang loud just to drown the sea. At the tables inside, people laugh and toast, crystal glasses catching the light. You smile bitterly to yourself. The glass is finer, the wine richer, yet nothing tastes as alive as the thin rum passed from hand to hand on that crowded ship. At night, you lie in a steady bed, thick mattress, soft pillows. But instead of resting easy, you remember the sagging hammock swaying in the scent of salt and sweat. The creak of rope still echoes in your ears, lulling you with that uneasy comfort. You suddenly realize the silence of land can feel scarier than any sea storm, because it leaves space for memories to rush back, with no waves left to hide behind. You remember the one-eyed captain's gaze stern, but carrying a deep weariness beneath. You remember the red-bearded man's ragged laughter, mocking even in danger. You remember the cabin boy's shouts, his small hands gripping the trembling ropes as if his life was bound to the mast. Every face, every voice, every footstep on that damp deck, none of them fade, like slow motion scenes replaying over and over in your mind. You try to blend in, to laugh and talk like everyone else. But sometimes, in the middle of a crowd, you find yourself snapping your head around. Sure, you've heard distant shouts, or caught the faint sting of sulfur on the wind. Land may have taken you back, but memory will never let you leave the sea. You return to life ashore where markets are noisy. Bread crusts shatter crisp. Wine gleams in crystal glasses. People around you talk in familiar phrases, untouched by salt or screams in the wind. On the surface, everything is in its place again. But deep down, you know you'll never be the same. Each time you pass the riverbank, you still hear waves crashing somewhere, not gentle ones, but the furious kind roaring through your memory. Each time you see a rope tied to a horse post in the square, you feel the sting in your palms from pulling sails against salt and storm. And every time a strong wind whips through the street, cloaks snapping in the gust, your heart lurches because you remember the one-eyed captain on deck, shouting orders into the storm. You tell the story like a confession, and also like a movie review of your own life. The scenes etched deepest in your memory, rock-hard biscuits you still had to bite, the after-storm feast with watered-down rum, the noisy, low-budget raids that brought little more than a laugh, the faces, some gone, some still alive, have become the irreplaceable cast of characters in the tale you carry. Your listener chuckles, sometimes shivers, sometimes just shakes their head. And you, as you tell it, wonder if everything that happened was real, or only a bitter dream staged by the sea. But then, the memory of the waves, of steel clashing, of rough voices singing through the night, those echoes remind you it was real and still running in your blood. At night, you lie still, the streets outside fallen silent. The wind whistles through the cracks, and you almost hear the red-bearded man's ragged laugh, the cabin boy's shrill song, the sea bear's off-key strumming. The sea is no longer before your eyes, but it has anchored itself deep inside you. And finally, you whisper into the dark, a question no one else has to answer. If you had the chance, would you dare step aboard again, so the journey of your pirate life closes? From the moment you were tricked into setting foot on deck, chewing biscuits hard as stone, fighting through storms, hearing gunfire, facing betrayal, then returning to land with a heart full of memory. Now it's all just an aftertaste. You can lay down the rusted sword, no longer hear creaking timbers or roaring seas. Now there is only a warm blanket, a soft pillow, and your breath steady in familiar darkness. Let the memories drift back, fading into the sound of faraway surf. Close your eyes. Let yourself slip into sleep. Let the sea inside your mind hum a lullaby, gentle now, like a pirate song with all the rum burned away, leaving only a calm rhythm. You have weathered the storm. Now it is time for peace. Sleep well, and if you dream of a white sail drifting far on the horizon, smile, because maybe it's only the sea, greeting you one more time, softly, just to rock you into slumber.